welcome to Hot News, Friday's edition, Friday, 10th November. Fortunately, it's not a Black Friday. And I have with me in the studio Mr. Edmond Combat. He is the director at IES, and my brother Arnold Kavapo, a financial analyst. We are here to discuss, amongst other issues, the press statement released yesterday by the ranking member on Finance and Committee and the spokesperson for the NDC, Honorable Kassil Atu Forsen, and the response also given by the Ministry of Finance, the public PR unit, about the intellectual dishonesty. They actually shut down so many assertions made by Honorable Kassil Atu Forsen, and we'll try to get him on the line to ascertain some of the issues to see where the truth lies, as it is. And we have in the studio, like I said, my brother Edmond Combat and Arnold Kavapo to help us do that discussion. To join us in this discussion, you can send your contributions to the WhatsApp line 026 084 6539 and the calling number is 0241 501 900. I repeat again, the WhatsApp number is 026 084 6539. Gentlemen, welcome to Hot News and good evening. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
And on today's issues is a bit confusing because for laymen out there and for some who are a bit privileged to understand a bit of the things that are going on, we are all confused about this ESLA bond, particularly concerning issues raised by the minority that, amongst other issues, they're saying that it was illegal because, one, probably they needed parliamentary approval, and certain cost elements involving the reason of the bond was quite Herculean. I'll start with you, Edmond. Your thoughts about these concerns by the minority?
Well, we all know we've heard about this energy sector bond that was being muted by the Israel government. In 2015, they passed the act that levied petroleum products and then the power sector as well through electricity tariffs to make sure that they could get revenue, government could get revenue, a constant stream of income to be able to offset a lot of debt that has accumulated over years in the energy sector, especially with VRA. And apart from VRA, I think there was also one on TOR, the thermal oil refinery. And the numbers, they did an audit on some of the claims, especially the BDCs who claimed that the TOR and some government agencies were owing them. Some were verified, some was not verified. And I think in 2015, when they passed the act, the decision was to try to issue a bond to be able to raise a quick, capital to settle those people at government, also especially banks and then the independent power producers, so that VRA could have a breathing space and then the government could restructure the entire power sector to be able to fit it for purpose for the industrialization and the development of the country. And I think somewhere in 2016 at the Lisa Hotel, that was somewhere in November, the then finance minister, Setepe, I heard him lay out with the banks, lay out a framework on how the bond was going to be issued. That was the first time I heard them discuss a special purpose vehicle that they wanted to put together to take the debt off the government balance sheet and then let the state-owned enterprises issue the debt on their books, and then they were able to raise the money to pay all those debts. And I think some of the banks were in agreement. At the time, there was this VRA energy sector debt phase 1, which was actually issued. I think it was about 2 billion cedis that took care of the thermal oil refinery and some part of the VRA debt. And about 4 banks, I'm aware, that thermal oil refinery were owing, were made to receive that portion of the money. And Ecobank was the lead arranger, and they were the ones that TOR was indebted to mostly. So I think that arrangement was done. The second phase was going to happen, and then there was this disagreement as to whether they will go solely to do it on the balance sheet of VRA through an SPV, or they'll do it through the government will do it and add it to its debt stock. That has been the disagreement and the argument as to how it could be handled. So the argument has been that, look, if government does it through its own balance sheet, IMF will be able to monitor it because government is supposed to own about 100% stake in VRA. And if you own 100% stake in VRA, virtually the state-owned enterprise is owned by government. So what is this thing about saying that the SOEs should be on their own self and government should be on their own self and all of that? That is not something that should be done. But for me, if you look at the whole structure, we have to look at the root cause. What caused the problem? Where we are today, where we are told that this debt is about 12 billion Ghana cedis. That is not a small amount of money. It's because over the years, we've had this so-called superior agreement with the IPPs, and then we've had this subsidy mentality where we said that government said they were subsidizing electricity generation, so that you and I were not supposed to be paying the cost that we were supposed to pay. Over the years, government claimed they were subsidizing petroleum products until it was deregulated in 2015. And they are saying that, so they subsidize it, and then on paper or verbally they say they've subsidized it. But when they are now supposed to pay those state enterprises, because if my generation cost, for example, let's say it's 50 cents per kilowatt hour, and you say that I should go and charge the consumer 30 cents per kilowatt hour, you government will give me the 20 cents. If you don't bring the 20 cents, it means that my assets are going to be down and I'll not be able to get money to pay, to be able to bring my assets to the level that it will be able to operate at efficiency. And what has happened is that with the IPPs that I spoke about, the superior power agreement that they had with these IPPs that provided this power plant all over Asogole, Sunun, and all of that, in that cash waterfall system, if any money that ECG collect, because ECG is the entity that collects the money and then pay Gridco, pay VRA, the generation and all of that. The moment the money is centralized in an account, and when the money falls into that account, the first people who are paid are the independent power producers. They have a superior agreement. So what is left is they use it to pay staff and pay other loans of VRA, ECG, and Gridco. And the little that is left is what they use to go and work on the asset. So over the years, at a point, I think 2 years ago, so VRA missed one of their critical turnaround maintenance, schedule, which affected their entire operational ability. So for me, this bond, when it came, we're looking at it to say that, okay, will government actually be able to issue this bond as they promise and be able to raise the kind of money that they are looking at? Because if you say you've set up a special purpose vehicle, on what balance sheet is a special purpose vehicle going to borrow on? What is their level of experience? What is their level of market exposure? Who are the people that they are bringing on board that they'll be able to raise the money at the least possible cost in the market? And if you look at the rates that we are hearing that they have been able to raise at 19.5 to some
between 19 to 19.5%
and all of that. So for us, it's something that is coming up. I've seen the minorities' position on it, and I've read the government's response. When I read the two, I don't really see a clear distinction. What I thought the government would be able to effectively respond to, and I think what Ghanaians are really interested in, is value for money. Value for money is very critical. Because if the minority is claiming that the ESLA PLC, the special purpose vehicle that was created to go and raise this bond, arranges fees of about, I think, over 80 million Ghana cedis. They said there was some administrative cost of 80 million Ghana cedis, and so printing of over 400,000 Ghana cedis and all of that. I didn't see the government address those figures. I don't know whether it was deliberate, it's an oversight, or it's something that they want to verify their figures before they come in. But all of this that is happening, if we don't take time, and the nation, those who are at the helm of affairs, and civil society like us, don't critically examine and ask the government to come clean, what is happening today will happen again, because the problems of Ghana are cyclical. When we get to a point where people have to be bold and take critical decisions and put personal sentiment and interest aside for the national interest, always it evades us. And that is where we are right now. And whatever we do right now can either make Dumsor come back in the future or not.
Yes. Thank you very much for that brilliant submission. And to Arnold, you being the financial analyst, I think the meat of the minority's statement, I think, was not to shoot to the import of the bond. They raised genuine concerns about the rate and whatnot, and the amount, if was probably oversubscribed or not. And particularly, what was the highlight of the press release was certain cost elements. I mean, one could understand that putting up a road show for a bond, I mean, it's not just going to the market to buy some tomatoes and whatnot. I mean, it involves a lot. But really, I mean, two road shows. So one in Ghana, one in UK. You are looking for at arrangers fees of 87 million Ghana cedis and whatnot. I mean, should you being an analyst? I mean, if we're doing such programs, where's the prudency? I mean, is it possible we do it with the least possible amount and get the optimum results?
Yeah, that's a good question. But good evening to your viewers. Yeah, so it's probably one of the things that is, I would say, peculiar to African nations, that what other people will do for almost like very little cost in Africa, we tend to do it at maybe times 10 of the actual price. It's a peculiar thing. But let me just say that the issue of issuing bonds is actually the main essence of this was to try and then let us move away from high cost of debt servicing for some of these things into like a long-term debt, so that at least we are restructuring those kind of costs, so that there's more flexibility in terms of what we can invest in, and more flexibility in terms of trying to look at it holistically. This issue about the cost, it's actually quite interesting, but I think the way to understand it is that in raising money, like you rightly put it, it takes quite a bit of time to get investors interested. I mean, you're starting from a point where maybe there's a lot of money moving into other sectors or other economies, and now gone are the days when we discovered oil, there was so much enthusiasm. Everybody was trying to get into Ghana. I remember if you're flying into Ghana at some point, you have almost all the planes you always full. I mean, these days we are not seeing that level of enthusiasm. I mean, part of it is also to say that because the prices of oil prices are dropping, it's also causing some kind of a shift into other sources of power. People are investing in more into solar. People are investing more into other clean sort of energies. And so what they call dirty fuels in the moment are not very much attractive forms of investments. I remember, this week I was actually busy at a MasterCard event, and I ran into a lot of investors who were almost all of them were interested in some kind of solar energy. Hardly do you find somebody who says, "Oh, I'm selling generators." Now, 2013, I was at a similar event, and everybody said I was selling generators or selling some kind of machinery. So there's a clear case of
Paradigm shift.
There's a paradigm shift there. And that's just because there's that social consciousness among people, and again among investors. If somebody operates a fund, chances are that he's gonna say, "Okay, I want to be seen as an entity, or I want my fund to represent the future, and so I want maybe this percentage of my fund to go into, like, say, this kind of maybe clean energy, maybe digital finance, for want of better examples." And so it takes a bit of time to be able to get people to come around and say, "Okay, this is a good investment. This reflects on your values as an entity and also serve real needs." So the issues about economics sometimes are not the real considerations when it comes to these kind of things. Of course, issues of economics will definitely always be very important, but then what is also extremely important is, again, the principles, the moral compass of the organization you are dealing with, and so on and so forth. So the way I see it is that it might take more to be able to convince the big ticket bonds are some of the biggest invested entities. So some from like 3 years ago, there was in excess of $37 trillion that's invested in bonds. So bonds are actually very big. But what is important is what are people investing those things on? And so it takes a bit of time to be able to convince those people to say, okay, I'm coming to put my money into these kind of investments and so on and so forth. But when you look at the figures that we are putting up, it's crazy. I mean, it's incredible, because you would ask yourself, what were you actually using those monies for? It's not to pay for. How do you raise money? You go into the market. You go into the market. You start from your domestic market. In this case, you have to go to GSE. You have to go and register, and again, if you want to raise it from an external source, you have to go and register. Those are the fixed items that you are basically paying for, and those are like almost like non-negotiable. So the rest are almost like flexible kind of engagements you use to entice people to come in. But when the figures begin to be running into millions, then that becomes quite worrying. And something extremely important, which I would like to mention, is that we are currently going to issue a bond at 19.5%. Now, here's the interesting thing. What's treasury rate currently? So we're issuing bonds. The treasury bill is around 13%. So you're issuing a bond which is actually 19.5%, and your own treasury bill is around 13%. So where's the economic consistency in terms of alignment? What's the policy? What's the coherence in the policy?
There's no policy credibility.
What's the coherence in it? That for me is extremely worrying, because you look at the spread. So it means that suddenly you're going to have everybody chasing after these other kind of investments. People are going to be trying to chase after the bonds rather than the much more traditional kinds of investments.
Yes.
Not to say that it's essentially bad, but it's the cost. If you were issuing it at maybe around the same rate, I wouldn't care if people are buying more bonds. But the difference between what somebody buying a treasury bill rate is going to be, because it's a short term, and so because of that, it forces you to think. But when you issue bonds and then you're paying the full cost in 10 years or so, I mean, you don't constantly have to keep thinking about what you have to deal with. And so after all, maybe by that time you'll not be in power. So you issue it and then
whatever happens.
Whatever happens, which is the worrying part. Yeah.
And critically, like he's saying, like Arnold is saying, look, if you see this, the way the government is issuing bonds all over the place, even with both domestic and foreign, and I think they want to issue an Euro bond next year. And if you look at it, most of the bonds are 7, 10, 15. So what is happening is that the maturities are forwarded into the future, and there'll be a period where there will not be fiscal space for whichever government comes. So they are pushing liabilities to future generations. That's what they are doing. They are mortgaging the future for the present. And yes, you can, because like you're saying, if the interest rate is 19.5% on a 12 billion cedi bond, it means that every year you have to look for about 2.2 billion Ghana cedis for interest, for the coupon alone. And then the maturity, the principal crystallizes in the 10th year. You can just imagine what is happening. And more bonds are being issued. So you see that, is it really a prudent way of this? Is it the so-called best way of borrowing? How does this actually accelerate our development? And you see, if you are going to, for me, if you are paying somebody an arranger's fee of virtually 1% of, I think, the total value of the bond raised,
yes, almost.
and you are paying the person this, and the person is arranging the bond at a coupon rate of 19.5 to 20%, truncated, not meeting target, is not able to raise the bond. You see, and when that happens in the international arena, if you are raising a bond where you go to the market the first time, the second time, the third time, and you're struggling, people begin to wonder what is happening.
There's an issue. So
Exactly.
People don't believe in your system.
Yes.
So
once that happens, any other thing somebody is going to do in your country, the insurance premiums will go up. because people are like, these people, they are not what we thought they were. And the whole system, it affects everything. Investor confidence, the risk assessment on your country's fundamentals increases.
Yes.
And that is going to affect even our credit rating going forward. So I don't know what the Eurobond that is going to be issued next year, what coupon rate we are going to pay.
And at what time range? Because we're looking at, is it going to be a 7-year thing or 10-year thing?
Exactly.
But let's hold that thought. We will take a quick commercial. When we come back, we'll look at, we'll land on those issues and probably look at alternatives. And indeed, when these monies come in, will it be used for what it is meant for? Because it's still hot news. Do stick and stay. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, my guest in the studio will still give us insights to alternatives to these bond wahala. I hope you're all following. Do send your contributions. When we come back, we'll read a few of them.
Welcome to Holy Trinity Incorporated, with products like fresh tomato paste, hot pepper paste, garden eggs paste, okra sauce, and onion paste. You can now store food for long periods with no refrigerator. They also have very tasty fruit marmalade, natural orange juice, pineapple, and strawberry juice. You must definitely try their iced tea lemon mix. All these are freshly produced under very hygienic conditions in Ghana. For further enquiries, call 0206 124 150 or 0549 480 256. Holy Trinity Incorporated, your home of authentic Ghanaian foods.
Mr. my friend, no, I could be tell those who can't go come here, so no bit maba. Hey, you, baby. Yes. So when you bought for, and I was a momo. Bought for ointment. Why never? Bought for in every hay. Oh, let's say when you bought for. I drew with me to the swan. Sorry. What's it? I drew when I walk up rubber memoir. Your body running friend Mali, go back, Passoa. What true for was me dancing in one blue. What am I dancing in your pass and Abraham Wabemi Haya? A young copy gate, Usisi, Waposu, a woman and a Tibre Museno, Nemuyania. So when your ultimate TB the far. Tania na white woman sway made the buffalo cream a treaty money yinako pimples a crow a jam a proper no one many area would way what the and chili good sumu now the buffalo soap can the sraswa 5 minutes a chi now the buffalo cream a sraso a best sunny in from a huato buffalo herbal products or mafua jatumunti was the male copa pasua.
Welcome back from that commercial break. I think we have on the line Honorable Castle Atuforsen. The line just dropped. I just heard that we'll try and get him back online so that he could throw more light on some of the issues. But Edmund, just before we went for that commercial break, these monies that are coming in, it's what energy sector is ideally for the layman. It means it's coming to service a certain debt at the energy sector.
Yes.
So what they're saying that they raised what in essence, so that's 5.32 billion out of 6 billion that they intended. So that money is supposed to pay for a debt.
Exactly.
I'm a layman, so what it means is I get the money, I pay for my debt.
Yes,
period.
Exactly.
Is that not supposed to be?
Yes. So what government is saying is that, see, most of those debt were owed the banks.
Okay.
The banks had raised LCs, letters of credit, for VRA's importation of light crude oil for their turbines, and then maintenance, operations, and all of that. And some of the, at the time, the Tema Oil Refinery and government had also made some BDCs. BDCs were bringing in products, and there were those under recoveries and over recoveries. That is, at the time, MPA or government was setting petroleum prices, and then was also literally controlling forex. So if you were an importer of petroleum products, there were certain margins that was allowable for you. That anytime the forex went above the hedged, or the fixed rate that MPA gave you, government was supposed to pay you.
Because you'll be losing.
Exactly. All those that are claimed to have accumulated over the years. And so government is raising this bond to use the proceeds of the bond to pay off those these banks and all those.
The issue is, will it be paid when the money comes in?
That is the question. Per the structure, the SPV that was set is supposed to, once they raise the money, they're supposed to pay the people that government is owing. And the people that government is owing were part of the structure. That is the banks.
Sure.
And the banks were supposed to use that because a lot of them have a lot of NPLs on their books, non-performing loans,
yes.
which is, virtually collapsing. You see 2 banks are gone
Exactly.
already. And we are hearing that
There's
2
another
or
one
3
lacking.
more
Yes.
banks are likely to go. So if they don't pay, if the money's coming, they don't pay, that would be a problem. But your question about whether we can trust that this money will be used to
Because
pay.
it's simple. I mean,
It's-
correct me if I'm wrong. I know.
Yes.
I owe you 10 CDs. I've gone for a loan for 10
Exactly.
CDs. Take your money.
Yeah. One of the problems that we've had with the management of the country's economy has been that monies that are earmarked for certain projects or for certain visions or for certain set goals are usually diverted to settle short-term problems. And I'll say this because, for example, we had the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, and then we had this sinking fund, and then we had this supposed heritage fund that we were supposed to use some of the proceeds of the oil
Yes.
into that heritage fund to create a sovereign wealth fund, and then use that to fund our infrastructure and the development of the country. But anytime government is pressed, even when it comes to paying salaries, sometimes those monies are used. So monies that they're not supposed to touch, they use it and pay, and then expect that they will raise some money back and go and pay.
So what's the probability that
So, at the end of the probability that this will be used to pay the debt is high because the banks are alert and they are part of the structure and they see the proceeds that are coming in. And we are hoping that the SPV will do its work. And unfortunately, we have allowed the IMF to continue to direct us because we appear not to be a serious group of people. So they are directing us and telling us what to do. So I hope that the IMF's presence would also help to make sure that the monies are used for what it's supposed to be done.
So I know could there be an alternative ways of funding our economy? Because from the look of things, future generations, economy for future generations, have been put on a short leash, if not a tight leash.
Yeah.
So what it means, if one day any of us takes over the helm of affairs, we are doomed. Because before we even get there will be rollover bonds.
Absolutely.
So you go and meet it, and there's nothing to do but to just go for another bond, service another bond. I mean, how do we get out of this cycle?
Yeah. Maybe first of all is to say that it's not an achievement to issue a bond
At all.
There always seems to be this image, this euphoria that's
Prestige
created,
around it. I mean,
saying that I'll be able to borrow. It's not. There's no achievement. It's not an achievement. Okay, that's just an operational stuff that you've carried out. It's not like it's a milestone you've achieved. There's no milestone in that. In fact, exactly, you owe. In fact, I mean, anyone at all can borrow. I don't want to borrow someone's words, but anyone at all can borrow. I mean, it's not rocket science. So this whole thing about we're able to do this, we're able to do that. This was a target, and we'll be able to. There's not an achievement. First of all, is to put it out there that when you borrowed, it's not an achievement. Now, to the substantive issue, Yes, it's possible. In fact, what would have made this whole thing much more attractive to me is somehow be able to restructure, the whole energy sector such that there's less dependence on debt. To begin with, debt was what created this problem, and you are solving it again with debt.
Creating more debt.
Exactly. So that's not essentially a very strategic and a very long-term way of solving a problem. But maybe to take it to another level, we have to, as a country, let's have a conscious dialogue around how we finance our capital projects.
And Edmund,
How-
I know that is
Yeah.
my problem. Dialogue, Ghanaians, we can do it. I mean, let's snap our fingers and we'll be dialoguing from here to Tamale or Boku somewhere. But the issue is, are we being practical?
Yeah, I mean that's the point. I'm trying to raise. That the dialogue almost always seems like someone, there's an invisible hand who is somehow controlling the dialogue. We want to have a holistic national dialogue around this because we all recognize that this is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable way to run a country when it looks like you're always
You're
running
in perpetual debt.
you're always running a perpetual debt. I mean, that's extremely dangerous. We have so much in this country. I mean, and here's my fear. Today we are talking about energy, right? We're talking about this bond. Can you imagine the various other projects that's been earmarked? Can you imagine the import of that on the various items? And if they're issuing these things and then it's costing like 80 million to do stuff, I mean, can you imagine the cumulated cost at the end of the day? So for me, this is a bigger problem. This is a bigger problem. It's not just about this energy bond that has come up. I mean, definitely this has its own problems. But let's look at is there a case of revenue? Is there a case of like saying that people should pay realistic fees for energy? I don't think everybody deserves to get subsidy. I don't think so. There are some people who can pay higher. There are people, I mean, where we are now, this neighborhood, if you can stay here, your average house is at least maybe 500,000 to a million Ghana cedis at least. I don't see why anybody should talk about, maybe subsidizing or anything in this regard. So let's look at what is the reasonable cost for the energy that we consume, and let's have a national convention around that. But the other issue that comes to mind is that, and this is what often concerns a lot of Ghanaians, is even when I've tightened myself, I'm like, okay, I'm struggling to stay within budget and I'm sacrificing something, and somehow these monies get misappropriated, like you mentioned, that maybe whilst you said the banks are vigilant, unfortunately sometimes it's not that easy. These banks are sitting down with NPLs of like what 20%, right?
20%,
Currently,
some of them
I mean
35.
the average bank Ghana. So if you have given out 100 loans, 20 at least on average, 20 of them are not going to pay. I mean,
It's a terrible concept.
this is terrible. And so you average this one again across, and then affects cost of everything in the country. But what's extremely worrying is that so you have these banks who these people also might they too owe. It becomes cyclical. Because the net effect of all these owing, I mean, tends to like hold the economy sort of to ransom. I'm speaking from, maybe I'm extending the argument.
Yes.
I mean, it tends to affect everything in the economy because then cost of credit becomes high. Cost of doing business becomes high, and you just look at the knock-on effects of all of these things.
And the basic one, cost of living, is just outrageous.
Everything it becomes so. To what I'm saying, it's better if you want to really manage your economy very well. If you can borrow and you borrow practically and you borrow with the best of intentions, it's possible to look at short wins or quick wins and be able to turn around very quickly, such that you can have your economy. You sort of you can see the impact of it. But let's face it, this is our consumption borrowing. Unfortunately, it's not like
Borrow
it's not
to
like,
consume.
yeah,
It's not to put into the productive
no, it's
venture.
not. It's not. It's not. So,
Let me announce
yeah.
here, the phone lines are open, viewers. You can call in on 0241501900. Let us have your say on this issue. I mean, this thing boils down to, it goes to a whole, sector of the economy. You can't just take out anything. Let me sharp on this. This one says Wilme claimed 51 million Ghana cedis as financial engineering services to raise funds for government. Now the Rangers of Energy Bond has siphoned Ghana 177 million as financial services and charges to raise 700 million for government through SLR PLC. Remember that the Supreme Court reason for ordering the refund was because the Waterville contract didn't receive parliamentary approval pursuant to Article 81.5. You didn't add your name. Yes, so Edmond. Before you respond to some of the things that
I think that there are critical ways that we can use to be efficient, to make sure that we're able to preserve capital in the country, and then make sure that we don't do things that unnecessarily cost us. For example, if you look at the energy sector, what can we do differently? One of the things that we can do is we are blessed, we're in the tropics. We are blessed with the sun. We can look for alternatives. The best.
Yes, I was getting to that. Alternatives. Yes.
We can use solar as one of the most efficient ways of making sure that more than every household in Ghana is on solar. If we do that, that is one way that we can use.
So we are not thinking.
It looks like
it's a regimented.
That is
way of running things.
Another thing is that we are thinking, but because of somebody's greed, they will not want it to go. So the kind of leadership, the kind of political leadership at the very top is what can transform that kind of thinking. Because
can you hold that thought? We have a caller online. Let's take the caller's video and come back to you. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, sir, and welcome to Hot News.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. Let's have your submission, please.
My name is Ebenezer.
Eben. Okay. Thank you very much, Eben. Please proceed.
I was mentioning that the amount that they use to make the bond is very high. So the government must look at it, and those who went there must investigate them well, because even the printing of the business cost 3 billion old currency. I mean, what kind of printing are you talking about? The whole house of the parliament that they print out this book inside out. So the government must look at this and then give us proper explanation. That's my situation.
I top up before you proceed. I mean, does it mean because it's expensive to raise or go around some of these programs that we should necessarily do it in an expensive way? Can't we be prudent about it?
It's not expensive to raise a bond. What you do is what do you need to raise a bond? What you need is that you need to have you need to prepare a prospectus. The prospectus is just lists where you're going to get your proceeds to be able to service the bond, whether there are any guarantees, the tenure of the bond, whether it's going to be 10 years, it's going to be 2 years, and then maybe you can decide to, if you want, you can put that you're looking at a certain coupon rate. If you want, you can leave it, and then you start selling it to investors. So on what basis? What kind of printing of documents will cost 400,000 Ghana cedis? So that's why
mind you, there were two roadshows. So I'm assuming that if there were for the Ghanaian one, it was 200,000. And let's take this caller's message. Hello, caller.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to Hot News.
Thanks so much.
Yes, please go on.
It's about this energy bond issue. I think what Ghana is going through right now under this administration, if something is not done drastically, I don't know where Ghana will be in a year or two. You know, we are owing these energy companies. Energy companies are owing the banks. And the previous administration was able to put in place a mechanism to pay the debt through this ESLA, model, such that we raise money in the form of government revenue taxes to pay this amount periodically until we finish paying. We assume that we'll be able to pay within 5 years, and everything was going on right. Nothing happened, though in opposition, this administration said the tax itself was a nuisance tax. you come to power and you feel that it is okay, you should use it to solve the same problem they intended solving. That's okay. But you decide that you are owing banks and you don't want to owe such banks. So you need to go and borrow money using the same revenue assurance that you are going to borrow money through bond to come and defray such amount so that you go, you start paying the people, the new creditors. So in essence, all that happens is that you change your creditors. You only change your creditors. You are still a debtor. You change creditors. So now, instead of owing the banks, you want to owe the bond holders. And this simple arrangement, just the decision to change your creditors from the banks to the bond holders, is costing Manda Ghana. The poor man's money that is deducted as tax, 177 million Ghana cedis plus. My brother, this is very, very, very sad. You are owing banks. You say, I don't want to owe banks. I want to owe bondholders. Changing of creditors alone is costing Ghana 177 million plus. In a country where students are sleeping under trees, students in secondary schools are sleeping in classrooms, and we do not have money. How can we have 177 million Ghana cedis to throw away? Why? And another problem is that this ESLA, as an instrument, as a company that is going to borrow, doesn't have any balance sheet. It doesn't have any asset at all, such that in case there is a default, such bondholders can fall on. So it means that in case of default, it is the same government that will have to cough up that money. So plus and minus, it is a sovereign bond. Because ESLA, you can't hold ESLA to pay anything. You can't. ESLA doesn't have assets that can be liquidated to pay the bond. So in case of default, it is Ghana government that will pay, which makes it automatically a sovereign bond. So why didn't the government go to the market to say we are borrowing as a nation with a sovereign guarantee, such that we are able to pay less interest? Because if it is a sovereign bond, then we pay less interest. And calculations we have are such that if we have bond for a sovereign bond, we would have paid about 2% less than the 19% and the 19.5% that we are paying currently, because it is a sovereign bond. And that 2.5, that 2%, if you calculate it on 6 billion, even we were hoping to borrow 6 billion, and if possible 10 billion, even 6 billion. If you calculate 2% reckless decision that we took not to use the sovereign guarantee, the 2% by the 10 years that we are supposed to pay the amount is 1.2 billion. What is wrong with our brains as a nation? What is wrong with the people who are at the helm of affairs? Is it about just sharing Ghana's money among the government appointees, associates, financiers? This reckless bond raising, we have lost.
Can you hear me, sir?
177 plus 1.2 billion is about 1.4 billion.
Yes.
Why should we lose this amount of money? Because the managers of the economy.
Excuse me. We lost him there, and then in fact he has raised quite an important issue, and then he I wish he was in the studio with us though. But how do you quickly respond to the time is almost up? How do you respond to him? And I'll give you about 2 minutes each.
What he's saying is true. The fact that you're just alternating the credits.
So we opted for an expensive option.
Yeah, but the only thing too is that honestly, if you also went with the sovereign to raise it with a sovereign guarantee, it was also going to increase the debt stockpiling, right? And
what will be the downside to that?
So when you do that, actually your level to borrow as a country
drops.
Yes, exactly. And then there's also a lot of risk, because anytime you go with Ghana's name as a guarantee, it comes with a lot of risk as well. So if you can shift that risk to an SPV, and that risk is on net, even though he's saying that the SPV doesn't have assets, the government is claiming that they have. I don't know how. I've not seen the structure. I've not seen the agreement between the Estela PLC and that of the government. But that's what the government is.
Very unlikely it's even going to be up to the value of the bond.
Exactly. So if it is well structured, assuming it's well structured, the best thing would be with the SPV. But if it is not well structured, the best thing would be with the sovereign guarantee.
Yeah. So I know.
Yeah. So I think I'll link this in again with the capitalization of the reason of the minimum capital requirements of the banks. And
can you hold that thought? We have the last call online. We'll pick this last call, then we'll come back to the studio. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
My name is David Francis, calling from Ategu.
Francis, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Francis, can you go on briefly?
Okay. In fact, I just don't think far. I don't know what is going on in this economy. Because previous administration introduced energy sector levy. And my MPP then said it was a million tax. And then when they come to power, they are going to scrap it. And now they are in power. And they want to use that same energy sector levy to go and raise another bond. By then, I remember the vice president now. Then he said, Dr. Bawumia said there was money in this country. And there was no need for we borrowing money from other countries. And now you are in charge now. You see, the other day I saw him comparing the economic management team of the previous government to this current government. It is not about holding PhD. Managing economy is not about having a big certificate. It is about the reality on the ground. Look at how people are suffering in this country. And this current administration is issuing bonds. I don't get it. I don't know what is going on. Even this particular bond, the administrative charges of the cost alone cost this country about 80 million Ghana cedis. About 800 billion. What? A country-wide training college teachers are on strike. Nursing training allowance has not been paid. College of education allowance has not been paid. Teachers are here, of which I am affected. We have not received our arrears from 2014. All these things is not done. Go to senior high schools and see students are sleeping on floor. Open floor. Students are sleeping under trees. Students are eating under trees. And all this, I just don't get it. Now look at a CD per dollar. What is going on? In fact, our leaders must sit down and tackle the issues, and so that the people will feel it in their pocket. In fact, now we are in hardship.
Your point well made, and we totally understand. And you can see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too. You have a very good evening. A cross section of the Ghanaians are not too happy with some of these revelations, but as you were before.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree and understand where these sentiments are coming from, because there's a clear case of us not prioritizing and we not spending money where really we should be spending money. We seem to rather be distributing the cash among special people within that system. But I was trying to build a point that we've raised capital requirements of banks. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a system where banks are going to have more capitalization than they actually need on a balance sheet. And so there's going to be more room for government to actually get banks to participate more even in this. If there's a trajectory, this reckless kind of borrowing. So I don't see these kind of things actually stopping, because once banks have captured, there's gonna be a lot of cash coming in from elsewhere for you to be able to survive.
Exactly.
You know, and so it's gonna be quite interesting to watch. But of course, we just hope and pray that the people at the helm of affairs are going to listen to the cry of the ordinary Ghanaian and would really prioritize spending, because when you borrow, it's not an achievement.
Exactly. And then I'll
It's
give
not
you
an
just an extended
achievement.
30 seconds to comment on the cyclical nature of we running the economy. Can't we look for an alternative so that at least we break this cycle and go into ventures that, of course, even if you put 2 billion Ghana cedis or 3 billion Ghana cedis there, you'll rest assured that for the next 20 years, you are covered.
Let me give you just one. Agriculture. Agriculture employs how many people? 47% of this population. And majority of our farmers are peasant farmers, right? Everywhere in the world, agriculture is subsidized. Now, the key thing is that if you're able to make sure that everybody eats and has surplus to sell, eventually those people are going to educate. Look at the impact of that across the board. One, you'll be able to feed the people, and they live in a more dignified way. If we can have very good agriculture, if we can invest in agriculture alone, this country is going to turn around, because it's the place that employs the poorest person, and it's the place that employs majority of Ghanaians.
Exactly. And to you, Edmond, in the banking sector, before you come, we have a strategy. We usually say that another way to get more profits is to either get more sales or reduce the operational cost in the branch.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if you
So
can't get
what we need to
more
do,
money-
the energy sector is very critical, and it constitutes a very important sector of our national economy. And one of the things that we need to do is, number one, we use light crude oil and then diesel. Now we have crude in Ghana. Now, when you import crude oil from Middle East or from the Americas or from Europe, they include what we call freight cost, which is the distance. So if you have crude here, the portion that we get out of that Jubilee field, let's make sure that we take the light crude from there and come and fire our turbines and take that cost out. That is one component. The second component is that we have a refinery. That refinery can refine the crude that we have here. There were these lies that we were being told in this country that crude is not fit for this refinery. It's not true. So they should refine it here, and then a lot of cost will have been taken off Ghanaians. And then we'll be able to, if you're able to do that, and then the third thing is that government should review the so-called superior agreement they have with the IPPs. That makes sure that private, businesses, private men businesses, when we pay after using electricity, they pay them first before they pay VRA. VRA should be financed properly and allowed to be able to run properly, so that we don't have. There were times in the past in this country that VRA delivered dividends. They made profit and gave that profit to government. So they should allow them and remove the political interference and make sure that the boss of VRA, ECG, and Gridco is stocked with competent men and women who understands how to run the energy system efficiently. And we have those people in this country. If we do that and we take away the political interference, we will free the energy sector from that, and Ghana will move forward.
Yes, perhaps if the political interference is reduced or probably kicked out, Ghana's economy can really grow. At times, some of us, like a last caller said, I can't think far. I mean, if we owe we owe a lot of debt here and there, and it's going to cost us this colossal amount to raise more money to pay, which eventually means that future economies are being mortgaged. I mean, but Ghanaians, well, we live to see. We only hope for the best. We pray that some of these issues don't die on the way out, and one day when my able strong men in the studio here take over the helms of affairs of the country, we believe they are going to do the best, and we hold them to task. We hope it happens soon. This has been Hot News. Join at the same time Monday 9 p.m. for Hot News, and have a very good evening. And shout out to everybody who watched us, who has been calling here. And sorry if I couldn't read your message or pick your call. Do join the same time next week, like I said, 9 p.m. and definitely we shall give you a call and acknowledgement. Thank you very much, and have a very good evening.